This is Colin Richards, and you're listening to the Lord and Richards Show. We're a team of investment advisors that are helping people right here along the Front Range of Colorado, as well as across the nation, to become financially independent from a biblical point of view. And today, we're talking about the principle found in Proverbs 13:11 by not investing hastily or trying to get rich quick or making sudden dramatic moves that can cost you, but rather experiencing the slow, steady, consistent growth that really builds wealth over the long haul. One of the books I've recommended here on this show was written by a man I got to listen to, got to meet and visit with, named Morgan Housel, Housel. And he's written a fantastic book full of stories and examples, so it's an easy read, on the psychology of money, or what we might call behavioral finance. Now, before you drift off to sleep, this is really a fascinating read. It gets into some of the decision-making of really great investors over time. And of course, it's got Warren Buffett in there. It's got some people you've never heard of. I'm going to tell you a little bit about one of those today. But Napoleon made a famous statement. He said, "A genius is the man who can do the average thing when everyone else around him is losing his mind." I love that. Let me repeat it. A genius is the man who can do the average thing when everyone else around him is losing his mind. And you know, as we meet with people like you every single day and help you develop that plan for financial independence, I found the people that are best prepared when they come in are people who have developed a mindset of steady, consistent, repeated, good actions, avoiding those behaviors that those who lose wealth tend to exhibit. Morgan said in his book, doing well with money has a little to do with how smart you are. It's got a little bit. You know, it's good to have brains. It's good to maybe have a little bit of experience. But he said this, it has a lot to do with how you behave. It really does. And what you discover is many of the smartest people on Wall Street are outfoxed by the average man in the subdivision or out on the farm who's doing the right thing over and over and over again. So here's the idea. Here it is. Ordinary folk with no financial education can be wealthy if you have a handful of behavioral skills that have nothing to do with formal measures of intelligence. Let me give you that again. Ordinary folks with no financial education can be wealthy if you have a handful of behavioral skills that have nothing to do with formal measures of intelligence. Now, where do we pick up those skills? Well, many times it's our upbringing, right? We tend to do and to repeat what we've seen our parents do or our grandparents do. Many times it's explicit teaching. You know, I love gathering my children around the table and teaching them out of God's Word about how to live life, how to honor God in their life, how to invest, and how to do all the things that are important to growing up in today's crazy, volatile world. And so, generally speaking, if you didn't pick it up by example, then it needs to be taught. And that's what we're doing right here today. And that's what we do for our clients constantly throughout the year. We're constantly sending out pieces designed to help you become more solid in those behaviors that will build wealth. We're gathering together every couple of months as clients and talking about what this means in a fun context. We go all over Denver. People have said, "Oh, you're giving us a tour of Denver." Yeah, we built a beautiful classroom in our offices, and we found that people would really rather go out and have fun, and then I kind of sneak in my teaching while they're eating. But however you get these skills, through example or through explicit teaching, they are critical to making you successful in the realm of financial accumulation, wealth, and what we call financial independence. Let me tell you a quick story about somebody who nailed this, who had no formal financial education. Here's one of my favorite Wikipedia entries, and I got this from Morgan Housel's book. Ronald James Reed was an American philanthropist, investor, janitor, and gas station attendant. What an interesting guy. He was born years ago, over a century ago, in rural Vermont, out in the sticks. And he was the first of his family to graduate high school. As a matter of fact, he hitchhiked each day. So that's a great principle. Take advantage of the resources you do have. He fixed cars at a gas station for 25 years, sweeping the floors at JCPenney for the next 17 years as a janitor. You think, well, how in the world could somebody like this be a financial note? Well, he bought a 2-bedroom house for $12,000 when he was 38, and he lived there the rest of his life. Unfortunately, he was widowed at the age of 50. He never remarried, and his friends say that his favorite hobby was chopping firewood. Sound like a pretty down-to-earth, simple, straightforward guy, right? No airs. Well, in 2014, he died at the age of 92. In that same year, 2,626,418 Americans died. Fewer than 4,000 of those Americans, a fraction of that number, were worth over $8 million. Guess who was in that number? You got it. Ronald James Reed, the American philanthropist, investor, janitor, and gas station attendant. It turns out he left $2 million to his stepkids and more than $6 million to his local hospital and library. There was no secret. People have studied his life. There was no big lottery win, no big inheritance, no big tip. What he did was he saved what little he could, invested in blue chip stocks, and waited for decades as it compounded. You know, that's one way to invest. And I tell you, the thing we can learn about what he did was patience, the choice not to make sudden moves like we talked about in our pilot illustration and another segment. Don't make sudden, drastic changes that can lead to a crash. Putting in place the principle of not trying to gain wealth quickly, which often causes that wealth to diminish, but rather to gather it little by little and see it increase. I love to see that. And I love to see it in our clients, who either start working with us when they're younger, building until their retirement age, or who have already instilled in themselves and their children these principles of not trying to get rich quick, not making sudden moves when the market's volatile, pre-positioning their assets in the right kind of places according to a written plan so that when the time comes, you've already mapped out the scenario and planned for it. I grew up in a military family, and I understand a little bit about war and what's going on overseas. And one of the biggest things you see are the miscalculations on the part of Russia because it failed to plan properly. It didn't plan for what could go wrong. It was one big assumption about how it was all going to go right. And you're seeing that army really struggle through that. Well, for you and I, getting a written plan in place, working with someone who can help us develop those behaviors that are going to allow you to accumulate great amounts of wealth and achieve financial independence, that's what we're all about. I'd love to get to know you, visit with you, talk to you more about how you can achieve financial independence, introduce you to a team of some of the most compassionate, caring, and competent investment advisors that you could ever find who help our clients from a biblical point of view to achieve financial independence. Maybe our next conversation is going to be with you. I'd be delighted.